last time I checked, Mr. Trinity himself, Mr. Will Forrest. He is taking a break from manning our Twitter page at Talk Trinity, where the latest polls are already up, ready for your delectation, debate, argument, probably in some instances. We'll be touching upon that later. In the meantime, you can also check us out on our YouTube channel at Talk of the Trinity, and also one of our many, many audio providers, Apple, Amazon, Spotify, Geezer. There's probably some others. Stay tuned till the end if you want to find out in the recap section. But speaking of recaps, on Saturday at Villa Park, Southampton came to town and were dispatched with the tail between their legs, 4-0. And ordinarily, we would be doing a review of the game, but we've already done that. And if you didn't know that, go and check out our live after the game preview somewhere in and around Villa Park, whereby we were joined by special guest Jakey D to talk about the instant reaction from the Southampton game. So, we'll wait. If you want to go and check that out, 20 minutes, come back for the preview that we're going to be going on to. But if you want a spoiler alert for the 20 minutes, Coutinho's quite good. So there we go. Moving on then swiftly, because we've got 2 games coming up this week in the space of 3 days. If you're thinking that the weeks drag towards the weekend comes early on Thursday nights. For those of you who are lucky enough to have Amazon Prime, which if Jeff Bezos has his way, is probably 99% of the country. 7:45 up at Ellen Road, the rearranged fixture, which was originally due to take place over the Christmas period, Leeds United, Aston Villa. And I think it's safe to say that a lot has happened in the last month since these teams last met at Villa Park, where it was a 3-3 draw. And go and check out our review podcast and video if you want to relive what we had to say after that game. But talking about this game going forwards, Villa, as we mentioned, coming off the back of another win on Saturday, the biggest win of the Steven Gerrard era. Leeds are starting their own new era with Jesse Marsh in charge, not to be confused with Stan Darsh. That's a South Park reference for you. If you get that, then you're automatically friends of the show forever. But will Leeds be friends of the show come 10 o'clock on Thursday? Because I think it's safe to say that if this game would have happened a couple of weeks ago, we would have been calling up the fixture people to say, this is a throwback to 92-93, where Villa played Leeds twice in the first month of the season. But is this going to be a game which is more about what's happened to Leeds in the last month or so, in particular, their change of manager, Bielsa, the hero who took them back to the promised land, cruelly dispatched back down the mountain to replace by Jesse Marsh? Is it more about Leeds? Or is it more about Villa continuing their recent momentum and being able to shut out the noise, quite literally, that is going to be going on at Ellen Road? How do you see this one panning out, Will?
Well, in answer to your question, this is all about Leeds, really. For what you've just touched upon there, the fact that it's Jesse Marsh, not Kim Marsh's first game at Ellen Road, the fans will be behind them. They had a poor result last time out against a struggling Leicester side, lost 1-0.
Played well, though. Played well, I think we have to say.
Did. And it was a different style to the Bielsa days, wasn't it? With his 10 different formations per game. Bielsa did great for Leeds. Very similar to us at the start of the season, getting rid of Dino. There's similarities there to two coaches who got 2 teams back to where they should be, or on history and on past performances. And I think Leeds should be a Premier League team. I think we should be a Premier League team as well. But yeah, it's all about Leeds, and I think that's in our favour, isn't it? Really, the fact that there's going to be a lot of focus on Leeds. They're going to be wanting to start well. If we can just sit tight, like we did against Southampton. We were very compact in defence, defended well, really limiting them to half chances apart from the the Shea Adams one, then hopefully we can nullify them enough that the crowd start to get a bit disgruntled, because I'm not sure how many Leeds fans would have wanted Jesse Marsh as their manager, you know.
I think if they... No, one for after the game. But I think with where Bielsa is in Leeds fans' esteem, even if Guardiola or Klopp would have taken over, there still would have been a few Leeds fans going, oh, I'm not sure about this. We want Bielsa. He's been sacked a bit too soon.
Yeah, and I think rightly so, you know, not so much with Guardiola, Klopp and those sort of managers, you know, but Leeds have every right to feel sad and upset that their time with Bielsa has come to an end because of the fantastic job that he's done. You know, getting them back up into the Premier League, having that identity, taking games to teams, even when they got it handed to them. I mean, look at the Man City result, 7-0, not that long ago. The game they played against us was a credit to the Leeds fighting spirit, where they're 3-1 down and they were down and out of the game, really, at that point, and they fought back to draw 3-3. And we were lucky, really, to get 1 point in the end, in my opinion.
Importance of a goal before half-time.
Well, yeah, and how ironic that we both got a goal before half-time. But yes, it's going to, the focus is going to be heavily on Leeds. I think the main focus for us really is the starting 11 more than anything else, especially in regards to those players who were unavailable at the weekend, and also with our sights on the West Ham game on Sunday, with so many games coming thick and fast. You know, that will be the main questions for Mr. Gerrard at his press conference, I would have thought.
Yep, and we will be delving into those questions and providing our answers feet first in our preview, which will be coming up very, very shortly. But we're not a Leeds podcast, but we're interested to just get a hot take in terms of the Leeds managerial change. Their last game of the season is Brentford away. If they hadn't got rid of Bielsa, do you think Leeds would have been pretty much down? Was this their only realistic hope of staying up? Because for me, the situation reminds me a little of Ranieri at Leicester. Obviously, Leeds haven't won the league, but, you know, in terms of getting promoted and coming in the top half, they would see as an achievement. It's not equal, but, you know, Leeds were, you know, kind of waiting a long time to be in the Premier League. Ranieri got sacked around about February, March time. I think his last game, I think they lost away at Swansea near the relegation zone. They were dreadful that day. And I was in Cardiff, funnily enough, that day, so they were having a whale of a time. I mean, they weren't knowing what way to turn in terms of Swansea winning a game. But there was a feeling at the time, he won the league. That's the big achievement, you know, the greatest achievement in Premier League history. If, you know, certainly we'll stop there in terms of, we won't go back in all-time football history. So there was a feeling, because of that achievement, wrong to sack him regardless of what was going on the field. That reminds me a little bit of Bielsa in terms of such a great achievement. Fans can't see him being sacked. And he could say the same. You mentioned Dean Smith. You could say it to a lesser extent with Villa fans in terms of he got us promoted, kept us up. Sacking him was unthinkable to some fans. But that's where I see the Bielsa sacking in terms of great achievement in keeping them up. No doubt about that. They would have gone down if Bielsa was in charge for our last game of the season, in my view. I think the defence was a runaway train. Any other metaphor for transport you want to throw in there. I think February, they conceded the most goals a team ever has in a month in Premier League history, which, considering some of the teams that have been in the Premier League and got relegated, is an achievement in itself. I think that they made the right choice, to be honest, because they needed a change, and sometimes a change is all you need in terms of, it can be a short-term fix. I mean, in terms of the Villa comparison, Tim Sherwood a few years ago when he came in, Villa just needed a change at that point. Long-term, didn't work, I think we can say, and that's a podcast for another day. But just that different voice in the changing room got the result that was a short-term objective for Villa, staying up that season, and also, you know, we had a decent cup run. I think the same for Leeds. I don't know whether Jesse Marsh is going to keep them up, but I think they had to do something, and I think that's given them the best chance. And they looked, as you mentioned, maybe a different team with a stretch. They looked a more disciplined team on Saturday against Leicester, and on another day they had a hatful of chances. They could have scored 3 or 4, and they just got hit by the only chance Leicester have. So I think in terms of them getting rid of Bielsa, like when we got rid of Dean Smith, sentimental, probably the right call in terms of when you balance it out. But that's my Leeds thoughts before we go and talk about the game. What do you reckon about? Or I'll throw the different question to you. Mm-hmm. Do you think Leeds are going to go down?
I actually think they've got more chance of going down now. I 100% disagree about the Bielsa sacking. And the reason for that is not just to get listens, and whatnot. No. I genuinely do believe that Bielsa was a very good manager. I think that he was smart enough to adapt his style of play if he needed to. They've been very unlucky with injuries. Phillips has been out for a while this season. Patrick Bamford is their source of goals, and he's been out. So they've had to stick Daniel James up front, a Man United reject. No offence to Daniel James, he scored 2 goals against us. He played very well. But he's not the type of informed striker that Patrick Bamford is. Patrick Bamford, would he have had second season syndrome? I don't think so, because he's done very well at Leeds when people would have written him off before we joined them because of how his career hadn't really taken off. I think they'd have found a way in the end to stay up, and I think they'd have stayed up by 6 or 7 points or so. And one of the reasons for that is how poor the Premier League is this season in regards to the teams that are at the bottom, without going into everybody. I mean, you've got Watford, who, apart from beating us twice and beating Man United, haven't really done anything. They're a sorry state for a team in the Premier League at the moment.
They're not even bottom.
Well, I know. I don't think Norwich are too bad, really. I mean, they haven't got Premier League quality players or enough Premier League quality players. Their best player is probably one that's on loan at them in Billy Gilmore, really. And yeah, they're likely to go down. Watford, again, likely to go down unless Roy Hodgson can mastermind 10 draws between now and the end of the season. You've got Burnley, who have decided that they're only going to rock up for a third of the season. And Everton have been abysmal this year after that fantastic start they had. I mean, you listen back to one of our podcasts with Pete from the Talking Toffees at the first one, and we were lauding Everton. Look at them now. I think, for me, that the appointment of Jesse Marsh, and I appreciate that you tend to go for a different type of manager when you've sacked one, usually, for a different style. You've touched upon that before. I actually think that for Leeds, I don't think Jesse Marsh is the right sort of a player. I don't know if he plays for him. The right sort of a manager.
Said he may do with that injury crisis by the end of the season.
He could do. I don't think he's the right manager. I tell you who I think they probably should have got instead. They even needed somebody to steady the ship and really shore up the defence. And that's when, as bad as it is and as it is, you turn to the likes of a Sam Allardyce just to keep you tight and hope to snatch a goal or two on the break with Dan James's pace. I think Lampard would have been a better fit for Leeds than he is for Everton.
I mean, we've tiptoed into the Frank Lampard waters. At time recording, last night Everton collapsed, I think is safe to say, against Spurs. Absolutely dreadful. I think in terms of Leeds, obviously mentioned they have Brentford last day. I mean, we are going to do our thoughts on the rest of the Premier League season later on in a few weeks, so we'll be going into this into more depth. I think Everton are in a whole heap of trouble. I mean, in terms of, for Villa, it came a lot earlier in the season when we went down. But generally, there's a feeling a club starts the season thinking, yeah, we're, too big to go down, or too good to go down, kind of that. And then eventually you get a performance, you get to a state in the season where you think, oh dear, to use slightly stronger language would have been used on our later edition. I think Everton are at that stage now. I think they're in a whole heap of trouble. And in terms of Leeds, the manager they've got in is similar to Bielsa, and that is either going to be a masterstroke in terms of, you mentioned Allardyce, the players are going to be completely alien to Allardyce's methods. So it's either going to be a masterstroke or Leeds are going to come bottom. So we'll see how that goes. But enough from the...
You know, sorry to interrupt you. I think the biggest problem that Leeds and Everton have is Burnley. Burnley have been in a dogfight before. Leeds and Everton aren't used to it. They're used to challenging at a higher end of the table. I mean, we'll come on to Everton another time, you know, but looking at our opponents at the moment, Leeds have done well in the Championship, haven't they? They've always been up that top half of the Championship over the last 3 or 4 years. They're not used to battling at the bottom and having to grind out results. They're used to be high-flying Leeds and, okay, having to get results to get promotion or get into the playoffs, but that's a hell of a lot different to fighting for your life and trying to stay up, especially when the mood of the fans and a change of manager comes along with only 10 games left.
Yep. And we don't have to worry about relegation. Touch wood, touching all the wood. We should be okay. And so I enjoyed that dalliance away, but we need to get back to Villa-related matters and the lineup on Thursday. Touched upon it earlier. Cliche on one side, don't change your winning team. Cliche number 2, play your best team, regardless of who you're playing. Which side of the line are you falling for Thursday? And obviously you mentioned we got West Ham, who we'll come on to in a bit. That's going to be a factor as well. Or is it? Or do you just go on one side, we're just playing the best, we're just going to keep this band rolling regardless of how many wheels are falling off? Where are you going in terms of the lineup?
You know, the old adage is you don't change a winning team, do you really? However, I feel I wouldn't change any of the midfield or the strikers unless I was going to bring in Morgan Sanson. But then again, Douglas Luiz had a good game against Southampton, capped it off with a well-taken goal, beautiful run. He did enough. He kept the ball well. He recycled the ball very well. I think the biggest question marks are over the positions of Chambers and Ashley Young. Luca Digne is fit and he's well enough to play. Then Luca Digne comes in for Ashley Young for me. He showed against Brighton that he was happy to stay that little bit further back, but he would get forward and create for us. Ashley Young tried to get forward where he could. He was a nice different option with him cutting inside rather than flying down the left wing and putting in a left-footed cross. At one point, I said to Jake, 12 years ago, mate, you'd have absolutely loved Ashley Young flying down the wing. He'd have got everybody up off their seats. You know, it's a bit different nowadays. For me, that's an easy one. Luca Digne comes in. Callum Chambers and Digne Konsa is more of a head scratcher for me. Digne Konsa is the better defender. He's the fan favourite. All the fans love Digne Konsa. We know that from our Twitter polls and from the residues of tomatoes on the outside of my house.
Yep.
But Callum Chambers did enough to keep his place and to feel hard done by if he was to be dropped. And I think it gets to that point, really, with Chambers playing so well. And he's played well. You know, he's played reasonably well in every game that he has played, bar the potential mistake for the Watford goal, you know, where he missed the ball. You've got to really think, have we finally got a player who can legitimately challenge the other two centre-backs and be in the team? And you think, well, it's all right because he's good enough to be in the team and he deserves his place, you know, rather than these are our 2 first choice, these are our backups. Is Callum Chambers a player where it's, okay, we've got 3 first choice and Courtney Hawes is the second backup, really, because if one of those 3 aren't playing now, naturally come in. If we kept Chambers in the team and then potentially rotated it again for West Ham and brought Konsa back then, I wouldn't see that as a problem. I wouldn't be bothered by it. And look at Callum Chambers' amazing pass for that Douglas Luiz goal. I know you're impressed with his performance. Yep. You gave him man the match.
I mean, it was a small sample size, but it's his best performance for Villa. I mean, that's not really, it's not saying very much when you've only played 3 games. But yeah, I thought he played well. I mean, I think Southampton were good opponents to have players come in, kind of in the, enforced rotation. We'll call it that. But I'd say where I rank Chambers is, I think he's above Courtney Hawes in terms of the pecking order. Would I play him ahead of Konsa? I probably wouldn't, in terms of, it depends, horses for courses in terms of the game. I mean, Chambers.
Horses for courses.
Horses for courses, yeah. I mean, speaking of horses for courses, I said it at the time when we played Newcastle, Chambers started. I would have played Courtney Hawes that game. I still stand by that. For that type of game, Chris Wood, Hawes is going in over Chambers for me. But yeah. Southampton was a very good example of where Chambers, he's a ball-playing defender. If you let him get the ball to his feet, I mean, I don't think we were all expecting the quality of that pass for the goal just before half time. But that's an example of what, Chambers likes to do in terms of get the ball at his feet, go forward. I mean, it'd be, I won't call him a poor man, John Stones, but, in terms of, there's going to be times if we know we're going to get a lot of the ball building from the back, then, Chambers is going to be a very good option. And, that's where you'd easily play him ahead of Hawes. I think the fact that we're playing West Ham a couple of days later, as you said, throws a slight additional element into the consideration. Looking further forward, then we've got Arsenal on a Saturday, and then we got a break for 2 weeks. So you'd hope that kind of fitness concerns won't play as much into it, assuming everybody's 100% fit. I mean, I think you've hit the point perfectly in terms of if Digne's not 100% fit, then I don't play him Thursday. We don't need to be playing players who aren't 100% fit. So if Konsa's not fit, wouldn't play him. If they are both fit, I think, because I do think they're both dangerous games for different reasons, Leeds and West Ham. We'll come on to West Ham in a minute. I would play Digne ahead of Young if both 100% fit. Chambers or Hawes, I'm agreeing with you in terms, I think that's a trickier decision. If it's Gerrard's view that Konsa and Mings are his first choice, then I'd play Konsa. Yeah. I think what Chambers brings to the table is, you kind of said, is it 3 first choice centre-backs? I don't think it's at that stage yet, but it's somebody who you're feeling a bit more confident to come in when Konsa or Mings aren't fit, in terms of you're not got your hands between your eyes going, oh God, who's the reserve player going to come in and, potentially fall on their arse and we're 2 down in 10 minutes. So it gives me a bit more confidence as the backup, as somebody who can step in. But I think choice between the two, I play Konsa. So I think if he's fit, I'd play Konsa. And I think it's similar in terms of Ings and Watkins at the other end of the field. The talk has been about consistency in selection, getting them playing together, just to try and build up that rapport, kind of get them both scoring, get them both, kind of looking for each other. It's similar at the back. I mean, our first choice defence has largely picked itself, which some could say has caused issues in itself in terms of not having anybody to come in. But if we're going to play this slightly different system of 2 up front, Coutinho behind, then I think consistency 1 to 11 is the way to go. And if Digne and Konsa are first choice, which I think they are, then if they're fit, I would play them. But talking about first choice, we had this debate in the pub after the Villa Southampton game. We say first choice, who's going to be in the starting 11? We could come up we had a joint agreement of one player who we thought is first choice, who's going to play pretty much regardless of what's happened the week before, the game before, Emi Martinez.
Dave was happy.
Well, yeah, I mean, we couldn't really say anything else, in terms of when he was there. But There is a little bit of a debate, in terms of, is anybody else absolutely guaranteed a place in the team? I mean, we just talked about Konsa, Chambers there. Is it a guarantee? I mean, we think in terms of what the starting 11 is going to be. I suppose another way we're putting at it, we've talked about the summer where we're thinking there's going to be a few players coming in, a few players going out. Is there anybody else in that team who can book their holidays in June, July, and not have to worry about having their agent on speed dial in order to find another club if somebody's coming in to take their place or challenge for their place? We didn't have that many during our debate. So, for all this talk of first choice and people being guaranteed a place in the team, as you said, you want people pushing for places. And I think that's going to be, in the summer in particular, interesting to see how many of those places get pushed, for want of a better phrase. Because I think we had one other player each who we tossed into the fray. I think mainly for a bit of sporting debate. But from your side, is there any other player who can pretty much say they're guaranteed a place in this team?
I'm trying to remember who I said now. Yeah, there's one, but he's a lone player, and that's Philippe Coutinho. If we get him on board, then unfortunately for Emi Buendia, Philippe Coutinho is the first name on that team sheet, along with Emi Martinez, because he's a world-class player. We've seen that it's taken him 6 or 7 games to get 3 goals and 3 assists. That's the type of player you want at the Villa, and keeping hold of him is going to largely be down to our ambitions in the summer and also his happiness. The only other player who I think can book their holidays realistically, and I'd love to mention Watkins and Ings, but I think if big offers come in for them, we can improve on them. Then we're potentially doing a lot in regards to them revolves around their goal return come the end of the season. The only player realistically is Jacob Ramsey. But as I've said to you before, I don't think that Jacob Ramsey is one of the first names on the team sheet or an automatic starter just yet. Please, Villa fans, my house has been pelted enough. Cabbages next time or something. All right. The reason I say Jacob Ramsey is he's young, he's still learning. I think we'll see him coming in and out of the team a lot. And it won't be until the end of 22-23 or the start of 23-24 that he really establishes himself as a first name on the team sheet, central midfielder, because he's got a lot to learn. His form goes up and it dips a little bit. He has his quieter games. Everybody does. I appreciate that. And you look at a John McGinn. John McGinn on his day is a world beater. He could walk into the Manchester United team. He could probably get into the Liverpool team as well. But when he has his bad runs of form, he's one of those names where Villa fans are calling for Sanson to get a start over. We will know more, won't we, when we see who we recruit. And it would be great for the likes of a Morgan Sanson to get a chance, because if he's playing as well as he did for Marseille, is he going to be the type of player who just commands a place in the starting 11 and doesn't get dropped? He's shown that he's very competent, very capable on the ball. And if he gets more minutes, he'll be a fantastic player for us. If Matty Cash doesn't go, and the rumours today are that Matty Cash wants to tie down his long-term future to the Villa, then is he the same? For as much bashing of Cash that there has been recently, he's played very well the last 2 games. He's taken on more of his defensive responsibilities, but then when we've let him go, he's gone shooting down that wing like a wind-up McDonald's toy. The only other person, Luca Digne, but that's because he's our best left back. Matty targets it off to Newcastle for 15 million, and until we get Aaron Hickey in or Ben Christian really starts playing more games, Luca Digne's probably comfortable.
Yeah, I'd agree with Luca Digne. Target sounds like he's throwing the towel in terms of wanting to fight for his place. And if we get 15 million for him, we get our money back. I don't think that's a bad deal. In terms of McGinn, I get the point in terms of he does have those dips in form. But the thing with McGinn is he does have, a few games where he's not playing very well. He does always come out of it. I'd say, in terms of he deals with adversity well. And there's some players who you kind of think after a few bad games, kind of confidence goes down. It is things get worse sometimes, and you hope they get better, but with some players, it just never happens. I mean, you could mention Matt Targett, for example, in terms of when the bad times started coming, kind of what was he going to be able to work his way back into form to keep Digne out the team? I mean, we'll never find out because, as you said, he's off to Newcastle. I don't think he would have done, in all honesty. But with McGinn, I think an interesting factor, and one probably for another day, is on Saturday as well against Southampton, playing a deeper role, kind of covering. You mentioned Cash a bit more defensive, but McGinn was kind of there giving him support. That kind of all action, covering every blade of grass kind of in his own half, McGinn type performance. For McGinn, it'll be interesting to see whether he starts getting agitated about playing that role as opposed to the role he plays for Scotland, where we mentioned before, a lot more attacking, kind of nearer the other end of the pitch, scores goals for fun for Scotland. Whether he's going to want to play at a club team, more akin to that role. And you mentioned if Coutinho stays, his first name on the team sheet, well, joint with Martinez, you'd say. But if Coutinho stays, McGinn isn't playing attacking midfield. Let's put it that way. So I think that'll be an interesting debate for the summer in terms of the agent. And no doubt we will be throwing our wild theories onto the fire as we see how the summer unfolds.
I mean, for me, McGinn, I don't think he was as defensive against Southampton. I felt that, and again against Brighton, I felt that he was able to play more of a central midfield role rather than a defensive role. So he's still able to get forward. Yes. And I would potentially, for John McGinn and for you, because I know that you've got posters of him up on your ceiling.
No. You don't know where else I got him.
No, well, I have him around your house, mate. John McGinn tends to have his dips in form when he plays deeper and when he's that deeper player because he can't affect the game as much and because he's relied on a lot more defensively. That's potentially a fair take on the whole McGinn thing. So when he's playing as a central midfielder, the same as Ramsey, and they're not having to pull out wide or really sit deep and cover, they can have more influence on the game. John McGinn, played very well on Saturday. First half wasn't at his best, but second half he came out firing and he was putting himself about. I mean, if one person was going to put one onto Romeo, you knew who it was going to be, didn't you?
So, yeah, I mean, it's interesting looking forward, but dragging it back to the present day, Thursday, Ellen Road. We talked about the team. We talked about Leeds. What do you reckon the score is going to be?
3-1 Villa.
There we go. Back on the winning bandwagon. I'm going to repeat a theme of recent predictions. I think it's going to be a draw. I think if we would have played Leeds a couple of weeks ago, I think we would have won. First home game under the new manager. Players know they're fighting kind of for their future. The fans are going to be up for it and all the other cliches you can throw in there. They looked better against Leicester, I thought, and something to build on for them. 2-2 is what I'm going for. I think there's going to be goals in this one. And as long as it's not us 2-0 up with 5 minutes to go and throwing it away, I don't think a point is a bad result. I mean, in terms of keeping the momentum going, keeping that undefeated run. But equally, as you mentioned, if we shut the crowd up, get on the front foot early on, or counter-attack, which is, I suppose, more accurately, then I wouldn't be surprised if we can go there and do a job on them. But those factors, I'm going for a draw.
I think this is a more defining game for our season than the last two games because we're going into this game, I would say, as favourites. Southampton, we weren't expected really to get anything. I know we felt that a draw would be a good result. Brighton as well, because of the bad run of form we were on, we probably thought a draw, we might lose. Brighton have got a couple of players coming back into the fold at that point. But now expectations are turning again. And we really need these 3 points ahead of an apparent challenging run of fixtures against the top teams. But I think that we'll handle it. I think we keep it tight. We go and nick a goal. We go and nick a goal again. and we race into a comfortable 3-0 lead with them scoring more towards the end. I think we'll have too much from. I think we'll play the counter attack really well. Let Leeds have the ball and counter attack them when we need to, and it's going to be a big game for Danny Ings and Ollie Watkins to take their chances. But if Coutinho, again, is playing anything like he did the other night or the other day, then who's going to stop him?
Yeah, but I mean, as much as you can make changes, as I mentioned, Leeds look better against Leicester. That defence is going to take longer than a week to sort out. So there is going to be space. There's going to be opportunities. But either of our predictions, there's going to be goals. And we will be going into Sunday's game, 2:00 at the London Stadium with some goals under our belt. However distributed, we'll have to find out. But West Ham United, challenging for Europe. I mean, when we are playing Leeds, West Ham against Sevilla in their own European adventures this season, big games. I mean, they're the type of games from a Villa perspective you want to be involved in. You know, Sevilla, I think they must have won the Europa League about 45 times, haven't they, in terms of this decade? But that's the games we want to be playing, and West Ham are there. They are I hesitate to use the word template just because of who's in charge, kind of at boardroom level at West Ham. So I don't want to give them too much praise. And let's just, at the start of last season, there were a lot of people, and I'll include myself in this, thinking that West Ham were going to be in trouble. Not necessarily relegation, but the atmosphere of the fans was really bad. And there was maybe a feeling after they did so well that, the crowd, or not having a crowd, kind of at West Ham last season helped the team. I think safe to say this season, they've dispelled that largely in terms of another decent start. Over halfway through the season, kind of it's still in the hunt for a Champions League place. I mean, Arsenal at time of recording have about 18 games in hand. So if they've played them, they might shuffle up, cement that fourth place. But safe to say, Villa, West Ham traditionally in the Premier League have kind of traded places, you know, in terms of looking for Europe qualification, and, you know, kind of seeing themselves as, it's a game I feel when you play West Ham over a period of time, it's not a game you go in thinking, we always beat West Ham. You know, this is a comfortable win. And it's not a game where you think, oh God, it's West Ham, we're going to lose, you know, in terms of that. Anybody can win on the day when we play West Ham. And obviously there's periods where we've had the upper hand and West Ham have had the upper hand. But it's one of those games in the Premier League. I mean, both teams have been relegated from the Premier League as well, so they're not ever present. It's always one of those games for me whereby it's a game that goes under the radar in the Premier League, because it's not usually a game where people are for Europe places, usually, both at the same time. Either Villa have had a run at Europe at the end of the last decade, well, first decade of the 21st century. West Ham have had a few seasons. So they're never fighting for the same thing, but it's always an interesting matchup. And I think Sunday, it's going to be no exception. I think this is going to be another interesting matchup. And for West Ham, it'll be interesting. We're talking about the team Villa are going to play on Thursday. It'll be interesting to see what team West Ham play on Thursday, whether they are looking at it going, we're focusing on our European run, so we might rest a few players against Villa, or whether they go the other way and go, we're going to focus more on the league because we got a shot at Champions League or qualify. I mean, I wouldn't see the point of doing it if they're just going to try and qualify for the Europa League again, because that's, you know, a waste of time. Or whether they go all in for the, you know, Champions League and put out the big guns against us. I mean, at time of recording, big gun Jared Bowen went off injured against Liverpool. Seems like the injury isn't as bad as first feared from a West Ham perspective, so they're not quite sure if he's going to be fit for Thursday or Sunday at time of recording. But that would be a big loss for West Ham. Antonio started the season on absolute fire, but goals have dried up. You know, funnily enough, a centre forward. He's not a centre forward. Playing a centre forward had that surprise factor. I think injuries contributed, but I think teams have figured him out now. So if Bowen's out, that's going to put a different complexion on the game. But we asked the question before our Leeds preview, is this about Leeds or is it about Villa? For West Ham, is it about West Ham or is it about Villa in terms of how this game's going to go?
It's very much a West Ham game again. You know, for all the reasons that you've said, they've got a chance at doing something special this season, getting into that top four. You know, at the expense of Arsenal, leapfrogging Man United. You know, finishing higher than them. That would be. Is it an achievement finishing above Man United now? You know,
no. I mean, it's amazing for United. They're one of the worst teams in the league, and they're fifth.
Yeah. You know,
they're tongue in cheek. They're not, but you know, it's funny to bash everybody else who isn't us.
I think the big thing is what you said is where do their priorities and where do their focuses lie? Do they want that chance of European Cup glory, not the proper European Cup, but you know, Europa League glory, which on their day with the team that they've got a very good chance of going far. I mean, Sevilla have been on fire, haven't they? Really, yep. in the league. Last time I checked, they were second. I'm hoping they're still second at the moment. They've got a lot of good players as well, and then you've got West Ham with Bowen, who's been fantastic, who's been rightly knocking on the door for the England squad, and hopefully he can keep that form up and get in to the World Cup squad. You know, you'd like to see fresh faces, and you like to see dynamic players getting into that team. The one player for them who is their Rolls Royce, apparently one of the best players in the world, and fair play for the confidence of it, Declan Rice. Declan Rice, fantastic midfielder, one of the best centre midfielders in the Premier League, I would say. So, yeah, the attention's going to be on them again, which probably plays well for us. We can let West Ham have the ball. We do know that their crowd can turn on them, though. They've been quite good to them the last couple of years, ever since the 3-0 defeat. Was it against Burnley or was it against Bournemouth at home where the fans ran on and lobbed all of them? Yeah.
I think Burnley, there was a flag. I think Bournemouth, it might have kicked, you know, kind of some of things going on. But yeah, they've got a history of fan protest over there.
You know, and I was going to say Karen Brady being all tied up with The Apprentice, but that was filmed a year ago, wasn't it? Let's be honest. I think, you know, we've still got quite a bit to play for ourselves in many ways. And yeah, it sounds a bit daft if you're a non-Villa fan, and maybe it sounds a bit daft to Villa fans, but we're stuck in that middle now. And we've got Palace, us, Leicester and Brighton, all on the same number of points, all on 33 points. We're 12 points clear of the team who are third from bottom. And whilst it's a case of, only one result going the wrong way drags you back into it and whatnot, we're 12 points off Tottenham in 7th. So we get a win against Leeds. We then go and get a good result against West Ham. Why can't confidence start to build? And yes, I'm being a typical Villa fan of we can make it into Europe. And by the time we get there, Sevilla may have won the Europa League again, which you wouldn't be surprised about. I don't think we will get into Europe, but I think we've got a very good chance of finishing strongly and higher than the 11th placed finish that we had last year. Let's carry on with that momentum and let's let the other teams have all the focus on them when we roll into town and go and nick 3 points off them, you know, or nick a point. It's going to be unsuspected a lot of the time. You'd expect West Ham to beat us. I imagine that people are expecting Leeds to potentially beat us because of the new Kim Marsh factor. So why not go and spoil those parties, and why not let the other teams have the weight of expectations on their shoulders and just roll in and hit them with an Ollie Watkins, Danny Ings, sucker punch? You know, we've arguably got one of the best attacking, well, it's not arguably, we've got one of the best attacking midfielders in the Premier League on form at the moment. Philippe Coutinho carries on like this, he's picking up player of the month, you know, for the Premier League. You can bookmark that if you want to.
Yep.
So why can't we go and cause some upsets against these teams?
So yeah, I mean, I'd say for Villa, the rest of the season is, we talked about earlier, needing to build momentum ahead of what you think is going to be a busy summer. We have got the opportunity to play spoiler to quite a lot of teams, kind of who we're playing. I mean, in terms of, evidently after the West Ham game, we got a bit of a tough run in terms of Arsenal, Liverpool, Leicester. Kind of, we got some big teams kind of coming to town, or we're going to town. I mean, I'm all over last day of the season playing spoiler when we play Man City. I'm all over that. And we will be talking about that in more detail nearer the time. But yeah, I think there is an element of top half, I think, is seen as the minimum aim. But also, if we get that, then we've achieved. I think, ninth, 10th, you'd have to take that. In terms of relegation, no, I can't see that. I mean, I'm still touching the wood. But as we touched upon earlier, have you seen Everton? So I think in terms of, it's a cliche, you only need 3 teams worse than you in order to stay up. And you've got Everton, Burnley, Watford, Norwich. I mean, that's 4. I mean, arguably Brentford could be dragging in there. Leeds, possibly. I mean, as I said, Brentford, Leeds last day. That's tasty if there's something on the line there. But yeah, I mean, Newcastle are safe now. Who would have thought spending 100 million in January would, keep you in the league? So yeah, I mean, I think relegation isn't a worry for Villa. I think in terms of Europe, no, not unless like there's a cup situation whereby where 9th can get Premier League, can get Europa League or Europa Conference League, maybe 8th. I mean, I think if we come 8th, I think that's a real massive achievement in terms of coming 8th. I'd say 9th or 10th, and I don't think that's bad. I think then you got to build for next year. We're talking about it in the Smith era, talking about it in the Gerrard era. 9th or 10th this season, you get from a manager situation, you get away with coming 9th or 10th. Next season, I think the board are looking for Europe, and so that's going to be the real litmus test of where Villa are as a club next season. But that will be in the Talking to Trinity podcast 22-23 edition. So, stick around for our musings on that. But in terms of Sunday's game against West Ham, I agree with you in terms of this is a perfect game for us to just nip in, play spoiler. The focus is on West Ham. They've got their bigger issues in terms of European competitions. No, well, I was going to say there's no pressure, but I think there is pressure when you got Gerrard in charge, in terms of he's got that expectation for next season for Europe. So he's already looking at who's going to be making the cut for the team. Our earlier conversation, how many people are guaranteed on this team sheet? Not many. So I think from a player perspective, you don't want to be dipping and coasting. But yeah, I mean, it's a shame this game isn't on TV. Well, we're obliged to say legitimately on TV. If you can find somewhere through channels that we cannot endorse or recommend, then you may be, enjoying yourself. But I don't think West Ham are going to struggle. And this is a fun one. I don't think they'll struggle against as much against us as they did against Kidderminster. I mean, that was fun. We're watching that, but. Take Sunday, 3:45, 4 o'clock. The ref blows the full-time whistle. What do you think the score is going to be?
I'm going to go for 2-2 on Sunday, and I think that's spoiler enough, and I think it's a very good result as well. That's 4 games unbeaten by my calculations and predictions, and I think that puts us firmly in the hunt for the title race still, if you go by my predictions over the course of the season.
Yep.
I'd be happy with a 2-2 draw against West Ham. I think the main thing is going to be nullifying Declan Rice, as I say, and John McGinn's going to have a hell of a game against him. We're going to need our best John McGinn. Hopefully it frees up Jacob Ramsey a bit because Douglas Luiz can go on to Souček. They've got a solid enough defence. They've got an absolute idiot in defence who shouldn't be playing football, but they've got a solid enough one. Though the 2 people who are potentially key for us is Konsa and Mings because of the last game that we played against them. The fact that Ezri Konsa had to go and get an early bath, got it ready for the rest of the lads, and Tyrone Mings was dropped and started on the bench for the game. So those 2 are going to come in. They've got a point to prove just from that alone.
Yep.
And if they're on their day, or if Chambers and Mings are there on their day, then I'm feeling confident at the moment. We're looking good. I'm sure that Gerrard will have done his homework, and with Michael Beale and Gary Mack next to him, he'll give us all the best chance to to go and extract some sort of revenge. Though I'd be happy with a 2-2.
Yeah, I mean, I think in terms of, you mentioned the home game, Halloween Horror Show, arguably that was the lowest point of the season. Arguably, that game, a real dreadful performance, dreadful result. Funny enough, losing 4-1 at home. I remember it was certainly a dreadful afternoon for my companion who I was watching the game with. They were not impressed with my increasingly angry rants as the game went on. I don't think there's going to be as many angry rants on Sunday. I agree with you. I would take a draw. I think a draw is a good result. A lot influences in terms of I'm torn between. There's always, not always, the cliche is there's a bit of a hangover when you play Thursday playing Sunday. There's a bit of a dip in terms of Europa, European commitments. Will it be the same for Villa? Because we're doing the same thing. West Ham doing the same thing. Does it lead itself to a draw? I think because we've put the mugs and all the stationery and memorabilia out to our supplier with negative Baz on there, we do need to honour the contract. I mean, I don't know any good lawyers, but I think the small print might be difficult for us if we try and break it. 2-1 West Ham. I'm gonna say that. I mean, I think it's good news for listeners, because usually when I predict us to win, things go wrong. So I'm hoping to help the team by predicting the defeat, so we get something out of it, and I can say negative bag strikes again. I know I'm a bit wary in terms of. Well, the best negative Baz is actually you in terms of the best negative Baz prediction was the one before the Watford game, and that was absolutely spot on, and it wasn't mine. So
I don't know what you're talking about. To be honest with you.
No, we'll see. So we'll see what happens Sunday, and I do hope it's not going to be a negative feeling for Villa at 4:15, and I hope it hasn't been negative feeling for you listening to this preview podcast. I mean, in terms of, you've got to see our lovely visages. I mean, depending if you are on YouTube at Talk of the Trinity, you can see the sun glistening on one side of my face through the window. So we're having the preview. We're sunny. Everything is looking good at the start of the week. And speaking of things looking good, our Twitter page always looks good at Talk Trinity. All those polls, debates, a lot more than debates probably on some occasions. So go and check us out on our Twitter page at Talk Trinity. Go and catch up with our previous podcasts, either on our audio channels, Amazon, Apple, Spotify, Geezer, Deezer, Vacuum Cleaner, some other ones, which I'll let Trinity himself wrap those up in his final words. But before we leave you to get ready in anticipation for the games on Thursday and Sunday, may I just say thanks for listening. Hope you enjoy the games, and I hope next week we're talking about 6 points, and we'd both be very pleased to talk about Coutinho hat-tricks, but we'll see. I'll pass you over to Mr. Trinity for his final thoughts.
Just again, a massive cheers, Tar, for listening. Again, whether that's on Spotify, Amazon, Google, Deezer, Freezer, Malteser, Fridge Freezer, Vacuum Cleaner, Grim Reaper. Can't think of anything else. Sorry, MCTOTT has just had a brain fart there. Thank you for watching on Talk to Trinity. Comment, let us know what you think. Do you agree? Did we talk too much about Everton and Leeds? Maybe a little bit there. What do you think we're going to do over the rest of the season? How do you think we'll do over the next couple of matches? Drop us a tweet, drop us a comment. If you're watching on YouTube and you haven't already, hit the bell, hit the subscribe button. You want to. Unfortunately, there won't be any match of the day cameos for me this week. Those of you who are eagle-eyed will have seen Stephen Gerrard giving me a big thumbs up right at the start of the Villa Southampton preview. I've got the screenshot. I'm happy to share. Thank you very much. But until then, stick with the team, stick behind the boys, stay safe. Cheers, Tar. Thank you very much. And Villa till I die. Up the Villa.